And what's also amazing to me is our drug policy. When you travel in Europe and you talk to I was just in Barcelona. Kids go to bed, parents are socializing, a couple of joints come out. It's just part of the scene. It's just part of the scene. It's part of, as Alan was saying, responsible adult use. And I was just thinking, I come home, and in so many ways, we live in a land of lies. I just don't want to embrace lies. We hear about compassionate conservatism. We hear about leave no child behind. We've got something called the Department of Defense. And we've got a lie called that marijuana is evil. Irresponsible use of marijuana is bad, and it should be dealt with accordingly. But responsible use of marijuana is a different thing. The lie that marijuana is in itself evil is one lie too many. And that's one of the reasons I'm here today. I just believe that the prohibition on marijuana is not only wrong-minded, but it's counterproductive. That's why I'm part of NORML, and that's why I came home a little bit earlier than I would have otherwise from Istanbul to be here with you guys today. Now, I'm a travel writer. And I think my activism in marijuana law reform kind of comes out of my experience as a traveler. I write books, I got TV shows and so on, and my parents forced me out of my comfort zone to let me see a different sort of angle on things. They didn't know that was going to happen, but I got over Europe as a little teeny bopper, and all of a sudden I realized, wow, this is not so bad. I didn't want to go, but I got over there, and on day 2 I thought, wow, you know, different candy, different pop, there was one-armed bandits in the hotel lobbies, statuesque women with hairy armpits. I mean, it was a different world. It was a wonderland for a little 14-year-old kid. Since then, I've spent a quarter of my life in Europe living out of a suitcase, talking to people who would not trade passports. People who may not have the opportunity or the affluence or a lot of the blessings that we have here in the United States, but they wouldn't trade passports. And I realized, hey, that's cool. They don't have the American dream. They've got the Bulgarian dream. They've got the Moroccan dream. They've got the Latvian dream. And that is something to celebrate. So what I've developed is sort of a European perspective. And that's what lets me be an effective spokesperson, I think, is because I can just bring home some ideas that other people have struggled with as they deal with the same problems as we are. To me, travel it's accelerated living. You make more friends, you have more memories. I can remember every meal I had in the last month on this last trip. It's just, everything is just more vivid. And the travel experiences challenges these truths, and it makes us more humble so that we can address untruths in our society a little more creatively. I mean, when you travel, you find all sorts of fascinating things that just didn't add up. I mean, in Bulgaria, this means yes. Try doing that, it's tough, yes. I mean, can I go in the door? And they go, that means no. And I go through the door and I get in trouble. In France, slow service is good service. I'm a tour guide. My people are frustrated because the service is so slow. Why do they not like Americans? You got to understand, they're respecting you. You got the table all night. Slow service is good service. I was just in Turkey. Standard breakfast in Turkey is olives and cucumbers. Olives and cucumbers and dates. And they're kind of into it. When Mohammed broke his fast, he would break it in the morning with a date. When you travel, you find people do things differently. They deal with problems differently. One of my favorite memories was in Japan, where they don't heat their house in general, but they have little space heaters. They heat in small ways. I got up in the middle of the night, I was there in the winter, it was freezing, and kimonos just don't fit me, so I put on the kimono, stick on the little slippers, shuffle down the hall to the bathroom. It's freezing, I could see my breath, not looking forward to sitting on that toilet. Get to the end of the hallway, slip out of those tiny slippers and slip into the bathroom slippers, go down, sit down, and the seat is heated. Beautiful, beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. I mean, I can't tell you how much fun it is when we travel to stumble on these odd little gems of how people do things differently. Travel carbonates your life, it's refreshing, it gives you a different perspective, it's fun, and in so many ways, I think it's like marijuana. It gives you a different perspective. It's fun, it's refreshing. Travel also overcomes fear. Fear is a problem in our society these days. I deal with it a lot in my work. I mean, because I'm trying to promote travel and people are, is it safe over there? Are you really traveling these days? Islamofascism. I think the biggest threat to our country is not Islamofascism, but people who use that phrase to scare us. Again, I was just in Turkey. It was so great. And it happened to be Ramadan. And people are afraid of different stuff, you know? I mean, Turks can't help it if they look like somebody who could assassinate the Pope. And it kind of gets Americans a little bit nervous. Turks are the most beautiful people you could ever encounter. And they got powerful faiths. And they're in a very, it's just not Mr. Rogers' neighborhood over there, you know, it's tough. And I don't envy them for what they're going to be dealing with in the near future here. But during Ramadan, the holy month of Ramadan, it's a lot of nervousness for Americans over there because you have these prayer calls wailing, and you have people fasting, and you have people that have, you know, unusual religious outfits going on. And if you know a little bit about it through your travels, it becomes something that's not a fearful thing, but something that's a joy. Every morning, and traditionally an imam waits and he looks, and when he can tell the difference between a gray hair and a black hair, that means it's light enough to call people to prayer. And the first line is, it's better to pray than to sleep. And then God is great. And people get up and they pray. It could be scary. It doesn't need to be scary if you understand it. Now in America, there's a huge fear, I believe, and that is we've got a giant reservoir pent up of people who, if it was only legal, want to ruin their lives and turn our country into one big hemp fest. This is a fear people have when they think about legalizing marijuana. I just flat out don't think that's the case. I've been in countries where a joint is about as exciting as a can of beer. In India, in Nepal, in Morocco, in Denmark, in Switzerland, in the Netherlands, in the Czech Republic. It's not a big deal. It's just there. It's just some people responsibly relaxing with an herb. Fear is something we need to address as citizens who care in this great country. I'm just really thinking fear is the flip side of wisdom, and they're using it against us. To me, the biggest fear right now for me is the fear of a dumbed-down society. And there's powerful people that would find it convenient if we were all just dumbed down and complacent. It occurred to me the other day, there's kind of an equation. Dumb electorate equals dumb government. Not the other way. We need to expect ourselves to be smarter. We need to expect our neighbors to be smarter. We've got to get over this bumper sticker business. You know, politicians understand the silliness of the prohibition on marijuana. I've talked to a lot of politicians. I'm friends with I'm lucky because all the senators and congressmen in my state of Washington love to travel, and they use my guidebooks, and they love to get together. They want to talk travel, I want to talk pot. So we have a compromise. They all understand where I'm at, and they're all right with us. But smartly, unfortunately, they have to be pragmatic. They don't want to get swift-boated. It's not their fault. It's the electorate's fault. And that means it's a grassroots problem, and that's what NORML and a lot of people involved in this are working on. As a travel writer, ever since 9/12, I've thought of myself as sort of a little more than a guy who finds budget hotels and gives you tips on seeing the museums without waiting in lines or whatever. I'm kind of like the medieval jester. In the Middle Ages, there was a medieval jester. You know, he was the only guy that could go out there and see what it's like outside of the walls and come in and tell the king, the emperor, what it was like, just straight to his face. And they didn't kill him. They needed that information. As a travel writer, it's really fun for me now in this fearful post-9/11 time when our country is outvoted the United Nations routinely 140-4, when we're 4% of the planet spending as much as everybody else put together on weaponry, and you can't even get elected these days without promising more. It's fun for me to go out there and come home like the jester and say what I found. And my thoughts on European drug policy are part of that, what I can bring home. I can invade people's comfort zones as a travel writer. I just have it in my blood. My dad used to be all wigged out about Allah and Islam and everything. And when my son was 3 years old, at table grace time, I taught him to bow his arms like this and say, Allah, 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 when Grandpa came over. Then I took my dad to Turkey, which is a much better way to get him over his fear. Again, when you travel outside of the United States, you realize marijuana is not a big deal. Now,